o'clock news, I'm Harry Hindquarters. In international news, the country of Palakalakawaka declared a state of war against the United States after a mutated sheep did something strange at the embassy. We'll keep you up to date on further developments in this. And now, with the local report, here's Chester Buttocks.
Forgive me, I haven't had my last confessional since never. I've been very bad. I shave animals for my own entertainment, and then I make them do high-stepping Broadway musicals. Oh, what is my penance?
Well, that's from the Too Much Information desk.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Mochrie, Brad Sherwood. Hello. Okay, so I must admit, I have interviewed lots of movie stars and lots of celebrities, and you guys make me incredibly nervous. What my very first question is, and actually when I spoke with Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey about them possibly coming here as well too, they both pretty much had the same answer to me. It was, when you have extroverted personalities on camera, everybody has the expectation that you're going to have that same personality in your private life. So when you're going to go to a Laker game, people are going to walk up to you and say something funny right now. Can you be funny right now? What can you do that's funny? How much pressure and stress is that for you, being that you guys are some of the best in the world at just making it up as you go along?
I think we're both pretty shy in our real lives.
That's a giggle.
And I think my shyness sort of exponentially grew the more I had an outlet for the performing. Mm-hmm. I think when I was in school and a kid, I was far more outgoing and extroverted and trying to make people laugh all the time. And then as I grew up and sort of had a place to do it on stage, then I became more shy.
What about you, Colin?
I was always painfully shy, and it wasn't until a friend of mine dared me to go out for the school play, and I got my first laugh, and it was like, oh.
What was the play?
The play was The Death and Life of Sneaky Fitch. A musical western. No, nobody would ever remember it. But it really wasn't until the success of Who's Line that I basically had to, just because we were having interviews and meeting so many people, had to sort of figure out a way of getting over that. I mean, this is my worst thing. Right now, it's
he
horrible.
can be in front of a 5,000-seat house, making it up and making laughs, and he's more comfortable than he is just in an intimate setting like this, having to talk. I'm more uncomfortable at a dinner with people I don't know, like a four-top at dinner, than I am in front of 10,000 people.
He doesn't use cutlery.
Is it because you can't see their faces and everybody sort of blends into one?
No, I think I'm more in my element when I am bungee jumping intellectually out of an airplane and trying to make people laugh.
We're more in control on stage. We're with people we want to be with, right, and who we trust, and we know it usually works out in the end, and life doesn't give that guarantee.
Yeah.
So here's my question. Considering that both of you guys have known each other for so long, and I know that you started at Second City, when you don't know an actor that you're working with and you're improvising, and I'll give you an example. Say you're at an audition and the director wants you to riff a little bit with them, and you're with an actor that's either not giving or attempting to upstage and give too much. How do you handle that when it comes to an acting?
I think you need to sort of develop your improv skills like a martial art. You kind of use the other person's energy against them. So if they're all over the place, you can use that to make yourself look good because you are the counterpoint to that. I think the auditioners will see that you're adapting. And that person may be all over the place and yelling and screaming and saying too much, and then you just stand there and are sort of the outside cool observer who just says one thing at the end of that, like, well, someone needs a Ritalin, and you get a huge laugh, and that guy was really trying, and the guys that are casting look at you and go, okay, that guy stayed in the moment, stayed out of that guy's way, didn't jump in and go me, and then got a great laugh because he was listening and present.
Right. And how important is improvising at auditions for both of you guys?
So important. I'm terrible at auditioning for scripted stuff, but that's why I mostly liked going out on either hosting auditions or commercial auditions.
Right.
Because it was really about throwing in your own stuff. When I go out, I am the worst person to talk about auditioning as far as going, reading a script, memorizing lines, and then going into a fluorescent lit room and trying to pretend like I am in a bunker, during a war. It so does not work for me, and that's why I've never been able to really do well at that. So
that was one of the reasons that you started improv was because of your audition technique. You wanted to improve that?
No. I sort of fell into improv. I was working in TV production. I went to school for acting, but when I first got out here, one of the jobs I fell into was TV production. And a guy I was working with said, "There's this cool improv class you might want to check out." And I had never really done improv, seen it, but it was like someone handed me the instrument I was meant to play. Here's the oboe. You've been trying to play tuba your whole life.
Right.
So.
And Colin, when you say you're shy, I find that incredibly hard to believe.
I know, and it's really hard to explain to people because, my wife said, when my wife watches Whose Line,
who's an actress as well, very fine actress.
She calls that guy the other because it's nothing like me. It's, in gatherings with friends, of course, I'm a little more open, but I don't have to be on. And when I'm with people I don't know, I tend to be quiet, which is why I disappoint so many people when they meet me.
I am the only person in the world that gets to see the two sides of Colin, because your wife really doesn't see that. I mean, I get to see the lunatic because we're on stage, and the audience gets to see that, but they don't get to see the shy,
the real me.
I mean, he's like Chauncey Gardner in Being There. He's like that shy. Like,
good reference.
Yeah.
Thanks.
These are film students.
Yeah, that's
Who
good.
here has seen Being There? Anybody? One. Okay. Oh yes. Anne, thank you, Anne. Yes. You're my generation. Okay.
Now, also too, most of the actors that are in here, as a matter of fact, all of the actors in here are studying on-camera acting. When you guys started doing improv, obviously that was on stage. So your movements, your facial expressions, your volume, everything was at a much larger ratio.
Yeah.
How do you guys manage to tamp that down or tone that down on camera? Because obviously, when you're on stage, if there's 5,000 people and I'm sitting in the back, I'm not seeing the way your eyes are rolling. But when there's a camera up your nose, I can see everything there is to know. So how are you able to?
Have you seen the show?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I mean,
so do you change anything, or do you keep it exactly the same?
Well, I think speaking as the actor that I am, which is I'm not a really great serious actor. As a Swiss Army knife, I have fish scaler and sledgehammer. Those are my acting styles. And whenever I'm cast in like a movie or a TV show, I tend to be the slightly over the top. Like in Jane White is Sick and Twisted, I played this like perverse old street guy. So I didn't have to tamp it down. They kind of hired me for being ridiculous and knowing I was going to go to 11 instead. So I think that my skill set and the industry have sort of, I would say, pigeonholed me. Maybe I'll break over into the other side and I'll be doing legitimate dramatic roles like Tom Hanks someday. But the likeness of that happening at this point.
It's also hard because. And this will shock people, that I tend to be more subtle when I'm auditioning for television and things like that. And I always get called in for the big characters, and I don't feel, it's not what I feel comfortable doing. I mean, it's hard to tell that from some of the stuff I've done on Whose Line. But I tend to go the other way, and I always, my rule is I'll only go as big as I feel comfortable doing, and then when it gets beyond that, then it's not good for anyone. It's not, it doesn't really service the character. I can't give them what they want, so we're just wasting everybody's time.
I'm the other direction. I'll only go as subtle as I feel comfortable with, which is...
We've yet to see that.
Yeah, I've just made a mess out of so many auditions because, and I think it's a confidence thing as well. I'm so incredibly confident making people laugh and making things up, but then when I'm handed a script that has even just the least bit of dramatic content, or I have to be sort of sincere, I just have a hard time doing it. And the editor inside my own brain goes, "You're a funny bastard. And right now, you're doing something that's not in your wheelhouse." You know, it's
Right.
just like, you are master at this, but yet you're trying to do some other art form, really. I mean,
Right.
And I know you guys are all studying to do this, and I went to acting school as well, and it was sort of a heavily, theatrical, musical theater kind of place that I went. And I think I learned pretty quickly out here that was my strength, so I might as well really hold on to it. So I actually am always in awe of people that are great at drama, and and being truly vulnerable. That's always something that sort of eluded me, and I think it eludes a lot of comedic people, because the comedy is your armor. You're sort of burying yourself while you're making people laugh, but you're burying yourself in a way that's completely different than the people that are acting like a Jake Gyllenhaal, who's like ripping himself open and going, "Here I am." Yeah.
And when you guys are on stage and you're working with other actors, whether you know the actors or whether you don't know the actors, what do you think are some of the most important attributes that everybody on stage seems to understand that the audience doesn't? In other words, you guys have taken some flack in the past for saying, "Oh, you guys don't make it up as you go along. You've got lines already worked out, and this and that." We all know that that's pretty much a fallacy.
Yeah.
Occasionally, you guys, and I have seen some of the same sort of dialogue or some of the same sort of jokes on the show when you guys do specific scenes.
Yes.
Is anything at all set up ahead of time? Like, I'll give you guys an example. When you do the weather or the news, and the music kicks in and says, "Hi, I'm Joe Blow," or whatever the wording may be. Is that particular character you're making up immediately, or is this something you may have thought backstage because you said, "Well, we're doing this game, so this worked in the past, so I'm going to try it again"?
The newscasters, I would always, before the show, come up with some really bad pun, because I love puns, and usually that was planned, although every once in a while I would forget, and then it'd be, "Oh, crap, I have to come up with," and luckily I have a large storage of bad jokes, so it would just sort of come out.
For as long as there's been mail, there's been someone to deliver it. That's just a fact.
But everything else, all the other guys, they never knew what their character was until Drew gave it to them, or Clive in the English one. The reason this was such a great gig was because there was really no work involved. We would show up maybe 2 hours before we taped. We'd sort of go through, it was a camera rehearsal, so we knew what games we were playing for the night. So Drew would say there, "Okay, we're going to do greatest hits." So we would sit, everybody would sit in their positions.
Go to the center.
That was it.
Camera
And then they
block.
say, "Okay, stop," and then we'd go back. And so we never improvised. If we did improvise, if there was a new game, we would use suggestions we had gotten from previous shows. So we had, and then it was just eating and waiting for the show to start. And then we would do the show, and then we were done.
And as far as for Wayne and I, the musical prep, we would have a music rehearsal where Laura and the band would play us all the different types of genres that if they did Rolling Stones, they were going to play sort of a knockoff, and they would let us hear it. So, and they would, the producers would just give us a random suggestion that had nothing to do with what was going to be on that night, but just so that we could hear the cadence and the measure, so that we would hear them and go, "Oh, they're going to do sort of a knockoff of Jumping Jack Flash if we get Rolling Stones that night."
Right.
So we would, in that musical rehearsal, we would hear that. We'd hear what their take on an REM song was, this and that. So we would hear and try like 20 styles, and then 3 of them would be thrown at us that night during the show.
Dana, give me some Novocaine. Dana, woo, I think that you got lots of class. I'd like to take you out with a tank of laughing gas. Oh, Dana, 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 I'll never get my fill. I said, Dana.
The singing guys were really underrated, I feel, because
It's one of the toughest improv.
and
to do.
everybody thought it was
Completely.
rigged. And there was
People
times
still
where
think.
I thought, oh, they probably know. And I thought, no way, I just give them the title. So, no. But to come up with, you get the title, you have to come up with rhymes, you have to make it sound good, and it has to be funny, all split second. And these guys were the best I'd ever seen.
And my question, and leading into that question, when you and Ryan would be sitting on the stools, and suddenly Wayne and Brad would have to get up to start this improv, would you guys go to the extreme to come up with the most possibly difficult song title that they could come up
Sometimes
with?
you
Or
would.
are you trying to be as generous
Well,
as you can with them?
I don't think we never planned, for me, it was always a surprise what the title was. For me, that was one of my favorite games. First of all, because I got to sit down, which was good. And it was just Ryan and I sort of bantering and goofing around, and then passing it on to those guys and watching them do something incredible.
You know, Colin, you're a child of the 80s just like me. And Lord knows we both come from the wonderful province of Saskatchewan, where our favorite type of movie was 80s rock music. And none was better than this #1 hit. They're in the Walls.
When I'm laying sleeping. Ticky, ticky, move, move. All the furniture, I hear them clicking.
Oh yeah! They're in the carpet, they're in the dining room halls, and they're even crawling inside the wall. They're in the wall. They're in the wall.
So for me, the bantering part was the part I was mostly concentrating on, and it's like, and then I could see Drew sort of looking at his watch, and it's like, oh yeah, song. So then it would be just toss. And sometimes there were good titles, and sometimes you would say something and go, oh, that sucked.
As the person that had to do the song, I know they always fall into one of three categories. If they were in the groove, the song title would be a joke in and of itself, which is kind of what they were always aspiring to do. That if Songs of the Plumber, Plunger, Suck This,
Right.
whatever they were going for,
Right.
that was their dream title, one that was funny and in the point. And then sometimes if they were just sort of blathering on, then they would kind of do it Fletch style. Who could forget that wonderful title, Honey, the toilet's clogged and I don't have anything but your earrings. And it's like, great. Thanks for truncating it down into a little thing.
Whatever.
So I'm going to now open this up to you guys. Ask anything and everything. I've already asked them. Nothing is off the table. So ask away. Raise the hands.
Yes. What was your most embarrassing moment on the show?
God.
I saw one where the lady fell and her whole dress came up.
Oh yeah, that wasn't mine.
Well, I mean, Wayne was picking her up. I think.
Yeah.
I think he was King Kong.
To me, I don't find anything terribly embarrassing because, like one episode of Whose Line, I went to sit back in my chair up in the back, and they were really close to the back edge of the stage, and I fell off the back of the stage. I'm not so, but that got a huge laugh from the audience, so that's not embarrassing to me. That's just another laugh. As a comedic person, that's just like, oh, that one was free. I didn't have to, I didn't even have to work at that. So
Doing the show, embarrassment and shame were kind of left backstage.
It's
And
pretty
it's not till laughter when you're watching something and go, wow. Well, I used Richard Simmons as a jet ski to fillet me. That's odd.
and that was
still
before
no
the show.
Hi.
No, I mean, our shame gland has pretty much atrophied. So, what is embarrassing to us when we're willing to get up as adults on national television, pretend to be monkeys and fling poo at each other? There's not a whole lot that can happen. Even if we sneezed and an actual booger came, that kind of thing might be the most embarrassing. But
If it gets
there's
a laugh.
very few things. I mean, our life is about kind of making an embarrassing scenario into something funny. So, in that sense, yeah.
Yes, it
What was your favorite games, each of you? Improv games?
Hoedown.
On Whose Line, I think I loved doing all the songs, except for Hoedown. I liked that because I felt the most scared during that. That was the biggest challenge, and I think there's something about the true improviser that likes that adrenaline rush of leaping into the unknown and then having to do something. I always make, in newspaper interviews, I make the analogy that we have to jump out of an airplane and knit or crochet a parachute on our way down so that we don't hit the ground. And I love that. What was your favorite?
The one I mentioned, the song one. It's greatest hits. That was good. I also I really liked Mission Impossible too, because it was that was a game where it was. We started in theater sports. You guys know what theater sports is? It's sort of an
Theater
improv.
sports and comedy sports are like the Burger King and McDonald's.
And it was a game where Ryan and I would basically just be getting into trouble and then trying to get out of it. And it was just goofy, sort of real free association fun. So, and there wasn't a lot of gimmick to it. Some of the games were so heavily gimmicked. It was like in the, let's make a date, you would get like a paragraph of what your character was, and it's like, well, what do I improvise now? So it was nice to have freedom just to be goofy.
Yeah, some games were a little overproduced, but that's okay because TV producers like to have control. So I think
it was really odd that the person in charge of Whose Line was a control freak.
Yes,
and
he made his living off of people.
He would come up after the show and go, when we gave you that suggestion, we thought you were going to go in this direction. It's like, well. We're making it up, Dan. We don't know where we're going.
So you've got 4 people with 4 different ideas, pushing it away from your potential, dream scenario.
But he made it work, so God bless him.
Yeah. Yes?
This is to both of you. What advice would you give yourselves now when you're in acting school?
Oh, that's a good. That's an excellent question. Yeah. That's a great one.
That's good. Any more good questions? I would tell myself that it's not to stop living at the expense of what I wanted to do. I was going to say I love theater school, but yes, I love parts of it, and there were parts that were hell. And then there was the part where it was your life. Those were the only people you saw. You were working like 12 hours a day, putting up productions, doing things. And I always have trouble with people who make acting their lifestyle rather than their job. It's a great job, and I love doing it. I love because you have so many different experiences open. You can, one day you're a pirate, next day you're a snack fairy. You can be anything. But you also have to keep in contact with the outside world and see real people, because when you meet actors and actresses, they don't always react in real ways. You know what I mean? Everything is like really dramatic or not dramatic, or it's. But I've always tried just to get outside, and we don't have an entourage. When we go on tour, it's us and some other guy. That's it. And we get no respect. We wanted to write a coffee table book called "You're Not the Fucking Rolling Stones," because that's what someone said to us when we go somewhere. All we want are microphones and 2 wooden stools. That's it.
And if we've come straight from an airplane, like just a deli platter with like slices of bread and ham and cheese, we're not asking for Cristal and.
So. I don't even know if I answered the question, but
don't make it only your life.
Always be open to everything, because when you just focus on one thing, you lose so many other things that can be important to the one thing you're focusing on.
And I think my sort of advice would be sort of or attached to that is do this with 100% committed, but only do it as long as it's truly enriching you and nourishing your life. Because no matter what it is, whether you want to be the world's best barista, actor, painter, whatever, if that pursuit is making you more miserable than it's making you feel like you're alive, like if you can handle the defeats and the rejection and enjoy the journey no matter how many times you get knocked down, awesome. And if while you're waiting to become a movie star or a TV star, you enrich yourself and are fulfilled by doing local theater or production, or just you're fulfilled by going out and hitting commercial auditions because at least you're getting to perform, or playing with an improv group or whatever, as long as it's nourishing you. If your entire happiness is predicated on the day you get that job, that big network TV series, and you're not going to really be happy till then you've placed all of the happiness of your life on the destination and not on the journey. And it is such a rip-off to your life. And you'd be better off becoming an accountant. Like, you really would. You're setting yourself up for a lifetime of sticking the carrot in front of you, and you're just always chasing it, and you're never going to get it. Well, you're not never going to get it, but the odds of you getting it are so intensely against you that if you don't literally enjoy the journey there, make the journey of being an actor as exciting through all the failures. A rough kayak ride. Enjoy the fact that you're going to get knocked against the rocks, dumped out of your boat, and get back in, and you're going to be freezing, and you're going to have to tent on the side and wait it out, and all of that, because that's what being an actor is. It's lots of failure and challenge, and you have to not let that failure make you miserable. Because I had known so many of my contemporaries that did not make it, but are still pursuing it, and it's just like they are 50-year-old guys still going on auditions to be like the action hero cop, whatever their agent can get them in on. And I'm like, you're only going to be doing commercials from now on. You may, if you're lucky, get the sidekick, quirky guy on the network sitcom, but they're always going to try and cast someone who's been doing that for years before they cast you. Jason Alexander's going to get the call, and then when he says no, this other guy's going to get it, and Joel Murray's going to get it, and so on down the line before you even have a chance. So the hierarchy, as you get up in age, it's always going to be the popularity contest.
What?
So, I'm saying that when you're young, the air of discovery is always alive and happens. And the older you get, the air of discovery and the window of that happening, unless you get cast as a great character part in an independent film that blows up, and then people start calling for you, and then you have a renaissance of your career. So I'm just saying, savor that journey. If you were in music, you have to enjoy making the albums and touring and all that, and the photo shoots as much as you love just singing in the shower. Yeah. Otherwise, you're cheating yourself. And you can look at anyone. You can look at people that are super famous and rich that are miserable in any aspect of business, and they have cheated themselves and they've lost sight. And
that's why we've stayed at this level. The worst day you have as an actor will never be the worst day of your life. So remember that.
That's true.
Yes.
Going back, I know you guys talk a lot about when you talk about getting knocked down and failure, especially with comedy and improv, because it's such a tough thing to do. Did you guys ever reach a point in your careers where you felt like you were maybe knocked down so much, or you kind of hit that wall, you kind of hit the hump where you weren't really sure how you're going to get through it, and if you could handle it, and how did you overcome it? I mean, if you even succumbed.
Oh, sure. I mean, I didn't become known until I was 40. So that was, but I had a 23-year plan in place. That really worked out nicely. Yeah, there are times. I mean, I was fortunate in one way in that I have no other skills. I wish I was joking. I can't do anything else. And so I really lucked out in that I love doing this, and it worked. What we do wasn't an occupation when we were growing up.
Yeah, you couldn't dream of doing what we're doing because it didn't exist.
Nobody
was making a living.
So lucked out with Who's Line coming around. The only thing that kept me going, my thing always was, I'm just going to keep hanging till people give up or die. And then my odds get better. I've just been always really stubborn, and I always had a great sense of wanting revenge. So my thing is, all the people who said I wasn't going to do it, all the people who stopped me from doing it, they are going to pay at some point in their life. I had this dream that if I died before that happened, that I was going to get my wife to throw my ashes into the eyes of everyone who had ever disappointed me.
He's a bitter man.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But there are. I mean, it's hard because there are some people who should perhaps look for other work. But I think you really know deep within yourself whether you have what it takes, and it really is. Unfortunately, luck plays a big part of it. Getting that break or being the. All you can do is be ready for when that break happens and knock it out of the park. When my first Who's Line, I sucked, totally sucked. I got to rehearsal. I was with 3 people who I'd never met before, who were all very nice, but I psyched myself up, and so I sort of closed. And you look at that first show. That's my embarrassing moment right there. It was just, I saw when I was watching it, I just saw all these opportunities that I could have grabbed and didn't because I had stopped myself. And I lucked out in that they shot some Who's Lines in New York, and Ryan was doing the shows there, and he begged them to give me another chance. And Ryan and I grew up together, and so we had worked together a lot. And they put me with Ryan, and then it was, I'm with someone I know, and it was fun. And then from then it kept going. But I had 2 chances to suck. And that's usually 1 chance more than a lot of people get.
Hey, Carl, where's your favorite place to listen to this CD?
In the bathtub.
Really?
Yes.
How would I know?
Same with me. The first season I did was in New York, and I did 2 episodes, and I thought they were really good. But I guess, the producer wasn't like blown away by me, and so I wasn't asked back the next season. And then another season, he was coming here to do auditions for new people, and asked me to come sort of help him run the audition, and he kind of wanted to see me do it again. And I was the only person from that audition that got on the show, and I was just kind of helping him run it because I had done the show before. And he fell back in love with me, and I had been then doing the show ever since. But I had to remind him, hey, I'm good, It's like I had to re-audition for him.
Right.
We always joke that you were always auditioning for him on that show.
Yeah, you were. We just did another show, a new one in Britain this summer, and Fred Willard is hosting it. And it was the same producer of the
Who's Line?
Who's Line. And we didn't really know what the show was, and he didn't quite either. And, we were working through, and everybody was, it was Wayne and Brad, and Greg Proops was there, and Nicole Parker from Mad TV, and great improvisers. And within an hour, everyone thought they were going to be sent home. It's like, because he has that power.
And paranoia. Like he wants every moment of improv to be the hilarious version of Siegfried and Roy making a box full of tigers disappear. Like he wants it to be as absolutely. It's almost like he can't quite understand that a scene needs 2 setup lines before there's something funny that happens. Right. It's like the setup line should be just as funny. So we're constantly like having to run almost faster than is good for our health.
Yeah.
So did you feel that limited you, or did that keep you on your toes?
Both.
This was I found personally a really tough show to do. It was faster than Who's Line. We had celebrities, and Fred would interview the celebrity, and then we would improvise based on that. The trouble was, the celebrity had just told the story, so there wasn't. And if it was a funny story, it just like, oh God!
So we had to take some sort of creative license with it and explode it up and make it weird and different.
It was just so tough. And Ryan didn't go over because he doesn't fly. If there's a second season in the film, he'll join. But so he wasn't there, and we. The group really came together, and it ended up, I think, being really good. But after the first show, we'd had like a week of rehearsals trying to figure out what to do, and we're adding games onto different things. And the first show went great, and the producer came up, and the first thing he said was, Ryan would have been good, wouldn't he? And it was like, fuck off! We have worked so hard. And it's like, yes, he would. But, we worked hard, and just give us a little credit, because without us, there wouldn't be a show. And sometimes it's hard to keep
your... Awesome. He hires us all the time. This is on camera.
Yeah, he's
on the internet. and to answer your question, because you asked it of both of us, I got to a place as a performer where auditioning for scripted stuff, like I would go out on sitcoms and stuff all the time, mostly sitcoms and sometimes other movies. It wasn't fulfilling me. I hated it. I always felt awful after these auditions. I always felt like the material, I didn't find the material of a lot of these sitcoms particularly funny, so it was hard for me with my comedic sensibility to be just like the doofusy guy that's sort of doing these weird setup lines that pay off jokes that aren't as funny to me as what we do.
As what you can make
yeah,
up. Right.
Yeah, so that wasn't enriching me, and I just hated the process of auditioning. I didn't feel good. I never felt like I ever read the lines in the room as well as I did when I was practicing it. There was just some disconnect between, okay, here we go, and it was never as good. The timing was always off. I'm very bad at like memorizing and getting off script enough to do it. So I decided I only wanted to go out and audition for things that I felt comfortable with, like hosting. I still go out and do commercial stuff and realities. We have a couple of like reality projects in the mix that we're doing. So I just don't go off on scripted auditions anymore. And luckily our tour, I can do that because financially we have, I call it our full-time, part-time job. But that wasn't enriching anymore. So I would have this like, I felt like I was going for exams or a medical test every time I would go on an audition. I'm like, why do I want to drive all the way across town in traffic 2 ways to feel shitty about myself when I've got a great career and I'm good at what I do? It's okay to not have to diversify. Take my niche. I'm really good at making apple pie. I don't need to make chocolate mousse. And so that's where I got to. And for some people, they're jacks of all trades. They can sing, they can dance, they can do drama, they can do comedy. I love that. There are some amazingly talented people that whatever the acting job is that they are asked to do, they can fulfill it. But I'm not that diverse. So that's what I did for myself. That was the one wall that I've come up against. As far as improvising, never.
Was it tough to accept that fact?
No, I had just been so frustrated. It was actually sort of relieving. It was a relief to myself to go, I'm an adult now. I'm never going to be Brad Pitt. I'm never going to be Bruce Willis. I'm never going to be a super huge movie star unless some fluke happens, unless some weird John Travolta renaissance happens where some amazing young New York Film Academy screenwriter or director decides, I'm going to make the most awesome film noir black comedy with the cast of Whose Line, and I get to do some badass Christopher Walken, monologue that this guy believes in me and casts me and I nail it, but I didn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops to convince casting director, producer, director,
right,
and so on up the chain that I could do it.
The gauntlet has been laid down, guys.
Yes.
Yeah. Give them the script.
You'll need older, funny people in the movies that you make.
Always. Always.
10, 15 years from now, when we're really funny old codgers, we'll be the Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I just want to tell you, you guys, I had love affairs with all of you on TV. You're always fabulous.
As did I.
Yes. Oh. And I think your ensemble acting was just amazing. I really applaud you. So there's 3 parts to this question. Was it really a happy ensemble once you got it going, or was there a lot of competition going on in that kind of a show? A. B. Your commitment to character was extraordinary. So that little point, if you could talk maybe to all of us about where you make the choice to become the character, maybe the audience doesn't laugh, do you stick with it? Do you stick with your first choice, right choice, or do you back away from it and maybe change that character? And the third choice I forgot.
I would say that the ebb and flow of the cast, like for as long as we were all together and as many shows as we did live and on TV, we are all still friends to some degree. There's a lot of distance because we don't see Ryan, but we would all get back and hit it out of the park. It's like we've been through comedy wars together in so many incarnations. You guys at Second City and us doing theater sports and so many incarnations of live shows in Vegas and on fun tours and doing Whose Line as well. So that kinship will always be there. You know, like any relationships, because we're all kind of like brothers, there might be ebbs and flows to things that have gone before. Like there was a person that I hadn't worked with in a while, and you know, at one point we were sort of just apathetic to each other, and then we got to work together again, and we fell back in love with each other because we had such great chemistry performing together. So that was an example of, oh, you know, it's so great to get the band back together because we made great music together.
And we never, another great thing about Whose Line was it was 3 weekends out of the year. So it wasn't like we were spending grueling day after grueling day. It was always fun seeing each other because we hadn't spent a lot of time together.
Yeah.
It was,
we'd have 3 tape days, and they'd get 9 to 12 episodes out of one weekend of taping. Yeah,
it was the cheapest show in the history of television.
That's why if you're watching the show and you see us wearing shirts you've seen before, but you feel like you haven't seen this episode, that's why. Because we would shoot 24 games during a taping, and they needed 7 per show, so they would usually get 3 episodes out of a show. So they would, after they were done, they would tape 2 more intros of Drew going, "Hey, welcome to Whose Line? Let's get started. We're going to start with a game." So they would do 3. We're going to start with 3 different games, so they'd have the ins and outs 3 times.
And working together, I mean, improv is such an ensemble art form. You have to work together. And there is, I hate to use the word competition because it has a negative connotation, but there is kind of it's not even going for the big, I get the bigger laugh, or he gets the bigger laugh. It's like being the best and going, well, I'll set him up for this one. He better get it, because I know exactly where I would go if I was doing it. And ultimately, you want the scene to be the best scene it can be, and that means having to work together. But you know, you do like to get your laugh on your lines. You do, when you come up with a great line, you feel like so. I'm always amazed that actually it worked out. So, and everybody, and when we were doing our scenes, we all had our different, I guess, functions in a scene. You know, Greg would often be the kind of the smart-assy, as did you at time. I was usually the woman or something. But we all, you do have to stay committed. The beauty of improv is there would be, you know, you think, oh, I'll do this, and then I would think, oh, this is the character I've just come up with. It doesn't seem to be working, but I would have to stay with it, because then it became, my challenge was to make the audience like me as this character. So I would try, and you know, my range of characters was wide, but I would try to just stick with it and work within what, you know, these guys were giving me and what the scene was, and it usually worked.
I also think there's a certain level of commitment, but your brain is also constantly going down a path with 4 or 5 forks, and if you start to go and that's not working, you instantly back up and go down something that might work as funny. You know, you're constantly taking the pulse of the laughter of the audience, and you're not going to just completely barrel through ahead on something that you know is not working. And you know, as you get to become a good improviser, I think you learn the tricks to instantly to make a U-turn or comment it on yourself, sort of the comedy equivalent of, well, that didn't work. You know, then that gets a laugh, and then you go off in some other direction. There was one other thing though she asked about.
The fear, just that moment of fear, you know, before you jump on to work with your partners, with all the choices that are going through your head. How do you make?
Yes. Oh, now before I answer that, I remember what I was thinking. The competition. I never feel competition in any of our live shows, Vegas shows, whatever. The only competition I felt on Whose Line was with myself. I had to be as good as I possibly could be, or I might not get another season. Like, that was the only competition I ever carried into the actual show, was sing for your supper, sing for your supper, sing for your supper.
And I think the fear thing, for me, the only time I am nervous, or the fear creeps in, is like 5 minutes before the show, when you know, I'm backstage thinking, okay, we have all these people who want to see a show, and we don't have one. It really depends on what they give us. It depends on how on we are. And then once you're out there, it's just giving yourself over and living in the moment. And doing all the things you don't do in life. It's you're listening to your partner, you're taking their ideas and you're building on them, you're accepting. It's like a happy place. There's really no time for fear because you're just constantly you're bombarded with so many things, not only from yourself, but from the person you're working with and the audience, that there's no chance to enjoy the fear. I think fear creeps in if you don't do it for a while. There are many great improvisers who I worked with at Second City, or the cast of SCTV, who won't improvise now because they're...
We see them at the Gildas Club charity events in Toronto, and they come up to us and they're like, oh man, I don't know how you guys do this anymore. I could never do. And I'm like, you are one of my idols from SCTV. You know, Joe Flaherty is looking at us like, how do you guys do that? I'm like, I do this with my eyebrow because of you, Joe. You know, it's just like that.
It really is a muscle that gets flabby really quickly.
Yeah.
If you don't work it, it dies. Yes.
Thank you.
Do you feel that you ever reached a peak in your ability to be funny, or have you just felt like you've gotten progressively more funny?
This is for you.
I think we get funnier because every time you do something funny, you sort of learn a new way, and especially since we're improvising, we're constantly pushing ourselves into the unknown of finding new ways, and we like to challenge ourselves, and we never improvise better than when we do something in our show, like get a really hard suggestion or change a game up so that we haven't played it that way before. When we step into the darkness, that's when we come back after the show and feel like we didn't get anywhere near any vibe that we did in a previous show, and we were scared. And when we improvise scared together, it opens up just that other extra notch of creativity as an improviser.
The last 2 months, I think we've probably been as funny as we've ever been.
Yeah, and this is 8 years of trial and error, changing games, getting
every
better.
Game, we came up with ways of making every game so that we were off balance and not comfortable.
Yeah.
And we find that's when we work best, when we don't feel, when we don't have a comfort zone. I don't suggest it for everyone, but it works for us.
And that's about changing a game so that it has a couple of different angles, and it's also about constantly changing the ask fors that you get from the audience. Because if you ask for something a certain way, after about 10 or 15 times, you'll start to get the same 3 things. So we constantly shake it up so that we don't ever fall into that group. You've been raising over and over and keep missing you. Yes.
No, don't.
I was going to ask you guys, on a 1 to 10, how would you rate Drew Carey's improv skills?
Drew?
The reason I ask
Drew.
is because he always seems very self-aware.
Drew, let me just start by saying, the loveliest, most generous man. And I mean that sincerely. Without him, the show would not have happened here.
He was a big fan.
I'm a big fan, and every year he would take the cast and crew of both shows on these incredible trips to show his appreciation for what we did. He would say, after the show, he'd go, you guys work your ass off. People come up and say how much they enjoy my show. He never wanted to improvise. The executives at ABC wanted him to. So he, once they sort of forced him to do that, he booked a regular spot down at the Melrose Improv, and we would all go down there and improvise so he could learn. So basically, he was learning from the first show. That he hadn't really done a lot of it, and he got better. And we did Improvaganza in Vegas, and his skills has jumped incredibly. I don't think it's ever going to be his strong point, but he's an innately funny guy, and there have been times where we have been helpless from his improv in a good way.
Well, I will also say this. He had the unenviable task of being thrown on network television into a pickup basketball game with the Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, we've all been doing it for generations and have honed it, and he's thrown in front of the camera on network TV on ABC and said, okay, improvise with them, and so he's literally learning in the cauldron of fire in an all-star game.
Is sitting on him going to help?
Couldn't hurt.
Well, let me try it. Wow. That
How's it feel?
feels great. Will it help you give milk?
Look, I don't know anything about milking cows. I just started being.
Are you some kind of fraud?
Yes, I am.
What's the big idea coming down to my farm?
Hey, you're the one who called me.
Don't you talk to me like that, buddy.
So any audience member just watching it is naturally going to try and compare him and go, oh, he doesn't hold up to them. Well, we've had, if I had to do a stand-up special with him and Jerry Seinfeld, and they said, here, go. Think of some observations, I would fall on my face. And he is the probably biggest champion / benefactor of improv as an art form to have got it where it is today. Whose Line wouldn't be on the air if he hadn't done it. People wouldn't even really know much about improv other than, college groups and local comedy clubs. Now it's taught in schools. It's a lexicon that everyone knows. It's a comedic art form. And then he also did the green screen show and Improvaganza and a Showtime special. So he's been at the forefront of putting it out there. Whether he's, totally deft at improv, but he is the guy that has created it. It's like he built the monument, the theater in which improv is performed. So all of the kudos and recognition of it as something that we can sell out a tour for is because he was such a big fan of ours and of doing it, So it might have been just his hobby, but it now is a bona fide, accepted, recognized comedic art form, much because of his efforts in championing it.
In that segue into that, I saw the episode that you guys did with Robin Williams. How does it feel knowing that before you guys came along, he was the end-all, be-all of improv? After I saw the show, I said to myself, okay, if these guys can make Robin Williams look dead, these guys are the best in the world. How does it make you feel knowing that you one-upped one of the best improv artists on the face of the planet? Because that's my opinion. I saw the show, and I've seen every single episode, and when I saw that episode, I was shocked.
Well, I would say, I personally, and I don't think you do too much either, I don't have an ego that does the touchdown dance for besting either contemporary or one of my idols or whatever. I was I didn't actually perform in that show, but we played with him a bunch of times live down in Santa Monica on Herald Nights at the Upfront Theater, and I got to play with him. And it's the thrill and joy of working with him, regardless of, he's coming into a team that's all been playing together.
Right.
So there's a comfort level. And to his credit, what he did, he was an improvising monologist. So he did years, decades of working by himself and, free associating, and all the voices and characters were just in his head. So, it's kind of like maybe the world's greatest tennis player that doesn't know how to play doubles, so it's almost a completely different art form.
And he totally raised, I think, everybody's game. He had so much energy that we went, oh, geez, we have to match this at least. And so we were, I'd never been so exhausted after a taping, just because he gives 150%. So you have to give at least that to sort of keep up. So everyone had their A game on that night because of him, because it was like we don't want to be left behind. Also, we want to make sure he has a good time and we get some good improv out of it. So, yeah, so he really did raise the bar for us.
Yes.
Hi.
We'll call you Light Stand Amy.
I wondered, since you've done it all over the world and obviously England and everything, do you find you tailor jokes to typical senses of humor in the culture, or you just do it and hope someone laughs?
I never tailor anything. If a reference of where I'm at pops into mind that feels germane to whatever we're doing at that moment, I'll throw it out.
My kickter kun hack a cocker game over in Cockwick, Conkin.
But I don't walk in with a satchel full of, here are my English jokes, here are my Alabama jokes. No, I never do that. At most we'll be doing something and like something stupid goes bad, and then you'll say, well, You very rarely see that in Alabama, and that gets a local joke out of him, and it has nothing to do with Alabama. You know, it's like if you make a local reference just for the sake of making it to the local people, they're going to laugh, but that joke would have also worked if you said it in Minnesota. You know, so
we just had we had 5 shows in India recently.
Last summer, I think.
Big Who's Line fans, and it was bizarre. It was, and we were a little worried about it. We thought, you know, they are one of the largest English-speaking countries in the world, just by the fact that there's 1 billion people. But we also thought, well, it's a totally different culture. Will they get our stuff? And the first suggestion, we got fart. So we thought, we're good.
We looked at each other. It's like, we're home.
So, and we didn't
problem.
change anything. We just did. You know, we don't do political. We don't do. We just do goofy, and I think goofy is universal.
We do goofy, situational, character, occupation type things, as opposed to, oh, let's do Britney Spears, blah, 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 Lindsay Lohan reference, or George Bush slam. We don't do any of that stuff.
And it's probably a good thing, because they told us after, which I think they should have told us before.
Yeah.
But they said, you know, oh, by the way, don't say anything bad or funny about Gandhi or they'll kill you. It's like, well, that would have been good before the show.
Just a little Xerox sheet right before
Yeah,
show
what else
1.
should we mention? So, we keep goofy.
Oh, by the way, there was a scimitar hanging over your head the entire time, content-wise, that you didn't know about. Good.
That could have been ugly. Yes.
What do you do in the moments where you just can't stop? I mean, you're all very trained and very composed, but the moments where you just lose it and you can't stop laughing. I remember seeing an episode one time where Ms. Mochrie, you said something. I think it was the Song Styles one, and you sent Ryan just going, and I don't know how you didn't laugh. And
I remember the episode.
Yeah. Something about like you impersonated a bird or something, like a bird would say Backstreet
Boys, yeah.
And I just didn't know how do you deal with situations like that?
We live for those moments. We wait for those. I mean, those are the best moments in the world. I mean, I think part of the reason I wanted to do comedy was when I was a kid, I watched the Carol Burnett show, and Tim Conway and Harvey Korman would do sketches on that show, and it was Tim Conway's mission to make Harvey Korman bust up at least once a show and these things. So he would just relentlessly pick at him with his little character till he started to laugh, and then once he started to break, he would just keep hitting at him. And that is my favorite childhood memory of watching TV comedy. And so I live for those. We don't do it very often, but every once in a while, if one of us busts and starts giggling, it's like my favorite thing in the world. And I'm usually the one that busts first.
Yeah, I don't find anyone I work with funny. So that makes it a lot easier. It's also, I mean, we're in sort of the same state as the audience. Everything's a surprise to us. So there are some times where we break. On Whose Line, it was always a... It was always like I'd been giving a Medal of Honor when I made someone on that show break up, just because they're all jaded and have seen everything. So there was always that moment. And so when that happened, that made my resolve even harder not to break up and to see if I could make them look worse, which you're not really supposed to do.
That's the killer instinct. No, but make worse in that when someone's laughing on stage, it's all gold for the camera. Like, that is free, awesome moments for the audience and everyone watching. So,
and there were some times where I broke up Ryan that really had nothing to do with what I just said. There was one where I said tapioca, and like he lost it. He just lost it, and I thought it was just bizarre. And afterwards, I said, "Why did you laugh when I said tapioca?" He said, "You sounded like Colonel Klink." So it was real. I don't know what my point was there, but I try. There were a couple of times we did a scene called The Cat, and that one was because it was a Mission Impossible, and we'd gotten into a little trouble in the beginning, and I find when that happens, you're a little on edge, and you're almost got the giggles anyway.
Punchy,
Because yeah, it was punchy. And then it started just to build from there. And luckily, Ryan started breaking, and that sort of calmed me down. So I used him as my
punching bag.
I guess scapegoat. I guess. So yeah, I find I just try to concentrate harder. Sometimes it works. You can certainly get away with it in comedy more than you can in drama. I'm just saying from personal experience. When you're laughing and Hamlet's dead, it's hard to come back from that. Yes.
What's one of your favorite memories?
Can't remember.
Yeah, sort of the beauty and the curse of the show is once it's done. It's sort of gone. Oh, it's only because, you know, I flip through the channels and I see a Who's Line and don't remember anything, and yet I'm doing it, so I obviously was involved. But it's just, I mean, the only one I remember semi-clearly is the Richard Simmons one, and that was only because of the audience reaction, because it stopped the show, which we hadn't had many times. So that's the only reason I remember that. I don't actually remember the improvising or what I did, but I remember that moment of just seeing people jumping up and down in the audience and going, oh, this is cool. But I don't remember any of the scenes.
I never remember anything that happened after taping. I just remember whether I feel good and thought, oh, that was a good show, we got lots of laughs. And then if I stumble across an episode of Who's Line and I see that I'm on it and I start watching it, I don't even have any recollection of what I said because I was in the moment during that thing. There were no scripted lines, so I have no expectation of what I said at that moment, because if I was put in that scene now again, I would have different responses. So I can't memorize just like you can't remember every conversation you've ever had in your life. That's kind of the way it is with doing improv, because it's stream of consciousness flowing out of your brain, free thinking like you live every moment of your day. It wasn't pre-planned, recorded, and rehearsed repetitively beforehand. So I watch the show as much like a person who's never seen it before. And I get nervous for myself when it's getting to a place where something funny needs to happen.
And do you find yourself being critical of yourself as well, too? Saying, oh man, I should have said this or I should have done that.
I never do that. I find myself holding my breath and then relieved when I did something funny. I go, oh, good.
He worked out.
I did it, yeah. Good for him. Yeah, he made him laugh. Awesome.
Most of the great memories are just from working on the show, and it was a great group of people. And for me, it was bizarre to be part of the ABC machine, because I'd never had that. And all of a sudden, we were going to these big parties with people I'd watched on television or people I'd seen in movies who I really admired, and they were coming up and talking to me. It was really surreal. We were in Pasadena, and they have this thing called the Upfronts, where all the shows come together. And there was a party that night, and I was with my wife, and we're walking down the stairs, and all of a sudden, surrounded by photographers who pushed my wife out of the way, and Kim Delaney, who was in NYPD Blue at that time, was pushed with me. And all these pictures were being snapped. And I turned to her and I said, well, I guess we're going out now. And I've never seen such fear in a woman's face before. It was like, oh, well. And it was just bizarre. And there were moments like that all the time, where we went to the Disney adventure. Just bizarre things. There was an opening of the Disney Adventure.
California Adventure, when it first opened, they had like a couple of days.
And you get there,
previews.
And they say, okay, you're going down the red carpet, your Wrangler is Goofy. And Goofy comes up, and for the whole night you're with Goofy, who can't talk to you when he's in the thing, so he has to use sign language to tell you where to go, and and you're just standing there going, this is not a real life. This is insane. So yeah, those are the memories I have. Walking the red carpet with Goofy. Yes?
What in your experience has led actors to substance and alcohol abuse?
Why are you looking at me? Some water.
That's vodka in there.
Yeah.
I think part of it goes to what I was saying earlier about enjoying the journey on the way, if all of your happiness is predicated on the success and you basically are holding your breath until then, you've deprived yourself of the happiness on the journey of your life. So you're this big ball of misery that finally gets to the celebration point, the finish line, as it were, and you don't know how to celebrate because you haven't been celebrating. You know, I think joy, any emotion is best practiced. Love, if you're in love, you have to continuously practice love with the person that you're in a relationship with. Joy as a common vitamin that you eat in your life, you must practice that every day. If you think that, oh, I'm going to suffer and be miserable for these 10 years, but then after that, I'm going to be joyous. No, you will have set yourself up for a pattern of working too hard, being miserable, being so goal and results oriented that you can't be happy anymore. You know, then you become the frustrated actor. And I think so many artists, musicians, have that tortured soul that drove them into the business. But once they get the success, if they can't turn that around and say, I'm going to buy myself a happy blanket to now walk through my life with, if I'm still going to propel myself with angst and anxiety and misery, then I'm going to constantly search for ways to medicate myself. And so in their unhappiness, happy people generally don't reach for as much booze and drugs as people that are either missing some aspect of their life, are unfulfilled, or unhappy. The other double-edged sword is that ridiculously famous people can get and find anything even when they're not asking for it. So they go to a party and they get a little drunk, and there are anybody that has drugs there will give them drugs and be able to offer it to them. And they will be offered drugs they didn't even know existed. And when they're in the weakened state of being drunk and partying, and like, woohoo, someone says, here, try this. And then all of a sudden they've tried that, and hey, I like the way that makes me feel. And now, you know.
And then they're on TMZ the next day.
No one can find a drug connection quicker than a really famous person. I'm not speaking from experience. I just know a lot of super famous people, and they can get hooked up anywhere they go. Because anybody that's carrying drugs wants to share them with a famous person. What cokehead wouldn't want to do lines with Robert De Niro? You know, I mean.
What's he saying? What Robert De Niro?
What? No, I'm just using a hypothetical. I'm just saying, like
That'd be scary.
That's what happened to Robert. Robert Downey Jr. might have had a bit of a tortured soul, but I guarantee that half of whatever he got into when he was in his binge and party days was given to him. He didn't even ask for it, and then he would find himself down the rabbit hole on 5 different things when he woke up in the morning, all of which had been presented to him by sycophantic, fun people or even friends that were out with him. He didn't start the night and go, I got to get this and this and this and this. They were just, you know, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. And once you're drunk and impaired, you're like, oh, okay. You know, your judgment's out the window, and everyone's offering it to you and being so friendly. And that's why a lot of people get into that. And the same with all the Dr. Feelgoods, the people that are, oh, I'm a little stressful. Well, I can get, you know, then they have a tour doctor that gives them the pills they need to sleep, and then the pills they need to wake up in the morning. And now the pills that make them sleep don't work as well. Oh, well, I have one that's also going to really make you sleep, and so on and so on. So now they have a pharmacy of prescription, really mess up your life pills. Yeah. And those people started off loving their lives, but they just had a little too easy access to the quick answers of how to sleep and how to wake up and so on and so on. You know, prescription is the new real drug addict in the world. You know, you have an accident, all of a sudden you get OxyContin and it's all over. Seriously, you should ride the pain out, because that will kill you. Yes.
I'm sorry to ask another question, but
no.
Would you mind addressing, both of you, if there is a difference with men in improv and women in improv?
I find the difference with men and women depends on the men and women. There are women who improvise like a person. What I mean is, they don't improvise as a woman. There are women who improvise as, well, I'm going to be the hooker, I'm going to be the bimbo, those are my parts.
Yeah.
The people like Bonnie Hunt, who was with Second City, improvises as good or better than any man, because she improvises as character. She improvises as a person. When she improvises, you see, oh, I know that person. I've done that, or someone, and she's funny. It's also, it's tough. Improv is Whose Line was a very bad place for women. The producer was not comfortable with them, and they were never given a great chance. They would always get slotted in. They had to introduce something, or they had to be the woman on the date, or so they never got a chance to do the things that they could do. Also, Whose Line, I find guys have an easier time improvising with the shticky, the fast, the jokey stuff. Women tend to do more character work, building the scene. Women, I find, excel on the stage doing improv because they have the time to do what they do well. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree, but also in any given improv scene, especially when there's three or more people on stage, there's a certain element of I've got an idea that's constantly coming out. So it's sort of a verbal musical chairs, you know, who's going to say what first. And women and their energy, unless they're ball-busting brash, they've got three guys on stage with them going, I got an idea, and they just kind of get elbowed out of the way if they're not saying, wait a minute, you know, so they can almost Chippendale themselves too politely into all of a sudden not being a verbal part of the scene. So there's that. And I also think that comedically, just it has nothing to do with all of the female improvisers that there are. I just think that comedy tends to be, in general, a character trait that more men tend to develop. It tends to be a non-feminine trait. It doesn't fit well into most women's survival skills, if that makes sense. Guys develop it to ingratiate themselves to people. Women generally develop other personality traits. They might be smart, alecky, or sarcastic, but a lot of women don't tend to be brassy, outgoing, Kathy Griffin-style personalities because socially they aren't rewarded for it in the rest of their life by men. Men are intimidated by it. So if it doesn't help them in their dating world and their interpersonal lives, they don't emphasize it. Does that make sense? Whereas for a man, it helps you get the job. You know, for a woman, it intimidates the people in your office. You know, so for the guy, he becomes the best salesman because he's always got a joke for so and so. For the woman, it's just like, oh, she's a little intimidating to me, a little too brassy. I don't think she's going to work her way up the corporate chain. You know, so I'm talking societally. Why I think fewer women. That's why there are fewer women stand-ups. That's why not a lot of them are as drawn to improv as guys, because from very early in their developmental stages, women are more nurturing and don't need to perform and get laughs. Women like to perform. I think that's why women are drawn to beautiful forms of art, whether it's acting or dance. You know, it's expressions that are more feminine and speak to their nurturing side, as opposed to comedy, which is at its base a little in your face and comes from a negative base.
You guys, we're going to do one more question, and then we'll bring you guys up here and get you guys to do a little improv.
What?
You guys just said that you flip through channels and sometimes you see the show. I was wondering, as you watch the shows, do you feel that it betters your creativity, or it gives you ideas, or it just enhances you or your performance or your outlook in yourself? Like when you watch the show after it's taped, you feel like watching it will help you in future shows, or just overall in your creative aspect?
Watching Whose Line never helped me. Watching things that I've done hosting-wise or acting-wise, I've learned from trial and error, and I should do this a little more, or if I'm a host, I'm doing something too repetitively with my hands or whatever. But certainly, because it's so in the moment, and I've been doing it for so long, I don't think, there's not a lot I could learn going, oh, that moment which was never going to be recreated and was completely hypothetical and situational at that very moment, that was one of 100 things I could have said. I might have said 2 things that would have been funnier. I could have said 20 things that would have been less funny. But the learning in improv is just by the doing it every time you get up on stage.
There's never a time where we're about to do a show and we go, we got it made. We know what's happening. This is going to.
We both always look at each other like, here we go.
What the hell?
There are anywhere from 900 to 3,000 people that have paid money to come see us this evening, and all we have is a piece of paper with
and hope,
moving bodies, and a list of games. It's like 10 words on a piece of paper. That's it. We don't know what those games and scenes are going to be about. We don't know what the suggestions are. We're going to bring people up out of the audience for them. We don't know who we're bringing up.
Yeah, the only way, as Brad said, the only way you learn is by doing it. And sometimes it's a horrible teacher, but you learn what doesn't work very quickly. You learn what your strengths and weaknesses are really quickly, especially your weaknesses. You learn how to deal with silence from the audience. You learn how to keep going, and you learn how to survive on stage with nothing except what you have and what your partner has. And I'm still shocked that it works out for us. It's just amazing to me that we have a career doing this.
Yeah, in a certain sense, it's harder than doing stand-up because stand-up has his whole contained act. But in a certain sense, it's easier because we can take the pulse of our audience and adapt to what's making them laugh. Whereas if a stand-up is sort of a cerebral city comic, and he's playing to a country crowd, he's screwed. The next 45 minutes of his life are going to be a white-knuckle hell. And the same thing, if he's sort of a redneck guy and he's playing in a New York comedy club, he may have his work cut out for him. But we get to adapt and turn the volume knobs up here and there to figure out how
because they're
make
feeding
fun.
everything, so really we're doing what they want us to do in a way.
Yeah.
And this is my final quick thing. I'd like both of you guys to finish the sentence if you could for me. You cannot succeed in improv unless you...
Well, I know my answer.
I would say unless you listen.
Listen. Oh, that's the thing. Well, I was going to say that. Yeah, that's what, there's really no other.
There is nothing. I mean, all you have is yourself, and as I say, your partner. And sometimes Brad will say something that may be totally inconsequential to what the scene, but it sparks something. It takes us into a whole different direction. And if you're not listening, if you're too busy thinking, oh, what should I do next, you miss that moment. And once it's gone forever.
And if you also, when you're doing a scene, this is the starting point, and this is the end point. When the scene is over and the two of us have decided that was a funny moment to go out on, the journey between there is literally like all of the maps of the synapses in all your brain. Like it fingers out, and from the first juncture it goes off in a million different directions, and then from each one of those junctures it goes out. There is an infinite number of possibilities where that scene could go off. You started off as two mechanics, and by the end of it we could be chasing a ferret into the mouth of a volcano with badminton rackets. We don't. I mean,
and it makes sense somehow.
And somehow we got to that moment through plausible and implausible leaps and jumps and fun moments, and it got to that place. So if you are fearless enough to know that there is not one destination in a scene, that you just literally can go off in other directions, and it's like the balloon. We both have to keep the balloon from hitting the ground. I tap it up and it goes a little bit that way. I have no idea when he touches it where it's going to be, so I can't go stand somewhere in the room and wait for it to come to me. I have to wait till he taps it, and then I run to whatever direction it is, and the same for him. He has to then wait to see where I go with that balloon or the bottle that is so full. So you can't, he can't go, I'm going to go stand in this little circle over here, and you tap the balloon to me. It's never.
And everything we say on stage is the truth, because it's what we're saying, and we're the bosses.
Yeah.
So whatever we say is this is the world we've made, and these are the laws, and it's true. It's true that now we are part ferret.
Yeah. Oh, that's so weird. I was thinking ferret. That is so weird. That is really weird. Because I was going to say. I was going to make the example that if I walk up to him and say, did you bring the ferret? He has to go, yes, I did. And I said, well, then let's get on our skis. And he goes, yes, we're the grand champion two-man skiing ferret team. But that's so weird that you said ferret. That is really weird. We're both left-handed Sagittarians who wanted to be oceanographers when we were younger.
Yeah. It's true.
That worked out well.
I think it worked out best for everyone.
Both of us failed in that journey, and look where we are now. Best of luck to you all. I went to school for acting, and it was one of the most awesome times of my life. I think the skills I learned were so valuable. Somebody just wrote an article, I think you can find out, 10 things I learned from a liberal arts degree or a bachelor's degree in theater or something like that. If you Google that, it's great. And he talks about the things he learned putting on productions and working in the environment of the arts, how that truly applies to problem solving and invaluable tools for the rest of your life, no matter what you end up doing, whether it's in production and film or theater or business or whatever.
This is a great. My son went to New York Film Academy in New York and just loved it. He's on the streets now, but
Yeah.
that's the career he chose. But this is, sometimes at the same time, the best and the worst profession to ever be in. So sometimes all you have is yourself, and nurture yourself, because really, it's going to help you through some bad times. And yeah, good luck to everyone. And remember us if you're casting.
And also remember, no matter how creative and insular you might be, that everything you are ever going to do, other than maybe a one-man show where you run the lights with your feet, is going to be a collaborative effort. So don't burn your bridges.
That's really important.
Be open to all the other people's ideas that are around you. At least accept them in, whether you use them or not. A bad idea is not really a threat to you to just hear it from someone else. So always remember, every film you've ever seen, at the end of it, even one that had only 2 people in it, that list of credits shows that was a huge collaborative effort. And pretty much any type of performing, most art forms are collaborative except for painting, really. So, but even then you have to collaborate with gallery owners to get your stuff seen and blah, blah, blah. But so expand, while you're expanding your own skills and abilities, expand your ability to work with other people, because you're always going to be in this Hungarian goulash, especially in the creative world, of freaks like yourself. You're all cartoon characters that are heightened and more interesting than the normal world, which is why you're here. You didn't want to be in that life, and you're either more dramatic, you're more emotional, you're more creative, you're more ADD, you're more OCD than the people that can settle down into doing those kind of jobs. So the good news is that you'll probably have a more interesting life, but the bad news is that you will constantly be bombarded with lots of other freaks like yourself. So accept that you are always going to be in a weird menagerie of characters. You are living in the psychological, here comes another analogy, you're living in the psychological jungle rainforest of the world, where you are going to be with weird characters. You're not, in the boring land of humanity. So always be open to accept those people and welcome them in.
Just as an exercise,
you don't have to love them all, just you're going to work with them all.
For an entire day, just yes-anding the entire day. It is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked at how often you're negative, how often other people are negative, and how often you block off people. It's really an interesting exercise.
Hugely interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
About it.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to take a picture with you?
No.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and.
No, but.
Good question. Good time for the yes and question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yes, and you can pay us.
fun. Do what you love.